Nobody wants you here. You're the diversity invite. Her friends laughed at the black woman in the midnight blue dress. Then, the most dangerous man in the room crossed the ballroom specifically for her. Before we dive in, thank you so much for being here. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Zuri Bennett had learned to make herself small in rooms like this. It was a survival skill she'd perfected over 26 years. How to stand at the edge of glittering crowds, how to smile with just enough warmth to seem grateful, but not enough to draw attention. How to exist as background noise in spaces that tolerated her presence but never celebrated it. Tonight, she'd tried something different. Tonight, she'd worn the midnight blue satin dress that had cost her 3 months of careful saving, the one that made her deep brown skin glow like burnished gold under the crystal chandeliers of Blackstone Hall. Tonight, she'd believed the texts from Tessa. "You should totally come. We'd love to see you there." She should have known better. "Oh my God, you actually came." Tessa's voice carried across the marble floor, drawing eyes. She glided over with Marin and Blythe flanking her like elegant predators, their designer gowns whispering promises of old money and older privilege. Zuri's smile felt like it might crack her face. "You invited me." "Well, yes, but..." Tessa's laugh was light, musical, designed to sound friendly to anyone not listening closely. She lifted her champagne flute, and the other women mirrored her, forming a loose circle around Zuri. "We just think it's so brave of you to come to these things. I mean, nobody wants you here, Zuri. Let's be honest." Her smile never wavered. "You're the diversity invite." The words landed like a slap. Nearby conversations faltered. Heads turned. Zuri felt the familiar hot shame creep up her neck, felt her hands begin to shake around her small clutch. Marin's expression was pitying. Blythe wouldn't even meet her eyes. "That's not..." Zuri's voice came out smaller than she intended. "Oh, sweetie. Don't make it awkward." Tessa touched her arm with false sympathy. "We're just being real with you. These events have quotas, you know? Someone had to fill the slot, and you're always so... convenient." The women laughed. Not cruel exactly, but dismissive, like she was a joke they'd grown bored of explaining. A few guests nearby exchanged glances, some uncomfortable, others amused by the little drama unfolding at the ballroom's edge. Zuri's throat burned. She forced herself to nod, to accept the humiliation with the grace they expected from her. She turned toward the exit, vision blurring, desperately needing air, needing escape, needing to disappear. Then the room went quiet. It wasn't a gradual hush, but a sudden, profound silence that dropped like a curtain. The tinkling of champagne glasses stopped. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the string quartet seemed to falter. Zuri felt it before she saw it. A weight, a presence, a shift in the very atmosphere of the room. Across the ballroom, framed by shadows near the far archway, a tall Korean man in a black suit lifted his head. His eyes found her through the crowd with laser precision. Whispers erupted like wildfire. "That's Kang Jae-min?" And then he started walking, straight toward her. The crowd didn't just part for him. People melted away like shadows fleeing light. Zuri watched, frozen, as Kang Jae-min crossed the ballroom with the unhurried certainty of a man who had never been told no. His movements were fluid, controlled, predatory in their grace. He was taller than she'd first thought, his frame lean but powerful beneath the perfectly tailored black suit. His dark hair was styled immaculately, not a strand out of place, and his face... God, his face was all sharp angles and unforgiving lines, handsome in a way that felt dangerous, like staring too long might cut you. But it was his eyes that held her captive. Even from across the room, she could see they were pale, an almost glacial gray that seemed to pierce through the glittering chaos and see only her. Zuri's heart slammed against her ribs. Her mind screamed at her to move, to run, but her feet had rooted to the marble floor. She was vaguely aware of Tessa's sharp intake of breath beside her, of Marin taking an instinctive step backward. Then he was there, stopping mere inches away, and the space between them crackled with something electric and terrifying. Up close, he was overwhelming, the sheer force of his presence a physical pressure against her skin. He smelled expensive, like winter air and leather and something darker she couldn't name. His gaze swept over her face slowly, deliberately, as if committing every detail to memory. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, smooth, a controlled rumble that vibrated through her bones. "You're Zuri." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of absolute certainty, of recognition. She managed a small, jerky nod, her throat too tight for words. The corner of his mouth lifted, barely, just a ghost of a smile that transformed his severe face into something devastatingly handsome. His attention shifted briefly to Tessa and her friends, and Zuri watched the warmth drain from his expression, replaced by something so cold it made the air feel thin. "Mr. Kang." Tessa's voice came out too bright, too desperate. "We didn't realize you were, we haven't been properly introduced to." He didn't even glance at her. The dismissal was so complete, so absolute, that Tessa's words died in her throat. Marin had gone pale. Blythe stared at her shoes like they might save her. Jaemin's gaze returned to Zuri, and that hint of warmth flickered back. His cuff shifted as he moved, and she caught a glimpse of dark ink climbing up his wrist, tattoos that promised stories she couldn't begin to imagine. He extended his hand to her, palm open, fingers steady. "Come with me." The words weren't a request. They weren't quite a command either. They were something else entirely. An invitation into a different reality, a door opening to a world she'd never dared to enter. Zuri looked from his waiting hand to Tessa's furious, disbelieving face. The woman who had just called her a diversity invite, who had laughed at her pain, was now watching with her mouth slightly open, her champagne flute trembling in her grip. Something fierce sparked in Zuri's chest, a defiance she'd never allowed herself to feel. She placed her trembling fingers in his palm. His skin was warm, his grip firm but careful, as if he understood exactly how fragile she felt in this moment. The instant their hands connected, a jolt of energy shot up Zuri's arm, pure, potent, undeniable. Jae-min drew her forward gently, tucking her hand into the crook of his elbow and settling her against his side. The solid wall of his body felt like a fortress, and for the first time all evening, Zuri could breathe. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Heads turned. Phone cameras emerged like fireflies in the dark. Zuri caught a glimpse of Tessa's face, white with shock, twisted, with something uglier than jealousy, before Jae-min turned, guiding her away with the quiet authority of a king dismissing his court. He didn't lead her back into the crowd. Instead, he moved toward a set of tall glass doors she hadn't noticed before. Doors that opened onto a private terrace overlooking the glittering chaos of Manhattan far below. The cool night air hit her heated skin like a blessing. The noise of the party faded to a distant, muffled hum. Lanterns cast soft golden light across the flagstones, and the city sprawled beneath them like a carpet of fallen stars. Zuri pulled her hand back the moment they were alone, her heart still racing. "Why did you do that?" Jae-min didn't answer immediately. He shrugged off his jacket with elegant economy, draping it over the stone railing, and she saw them fully now. The tattoos that had been hidden beneath expensive fabric. Black ink climbed up both forearms in intricate patterns. A white viper coiling through cherry blossoms and thorns, flowers woven around what looked like blade edges. The designs continued up his neck, disappearing beneath his collar like secrets written on skin. When he finally looked at her, his voice was quiet, controlled. "Because they were wrong about you. You don't even know me. I know enough." He took a step closer, and she had to tilt her head back to hold his gaze. 3 months ago, Harbor Light Free Clinic. Late on a Tuesday evening. Zuri's breath caught. The memory surfaced slowly. An elderly Korean woman, frail and frightened, who spoke almost no English. The clinic had been understaffed, the waiting room chaotic, and everyone else had been too busy to notice one confused, terrified patient. "You stayed past your shift," Jae-min continued, his pale eyes never leaving hers. "You brought her blankets, tea. You held her hand while the doctor examined her. You told her about your own grandmother, even though she couldn't understand most of the words. You made her feel safe. That was..." Zuri's voice cracked. "That was nothing anyone would have." No. The single word was absolute. They wouldn't have, and she wasn't just anyone. His expression softened with something that looked almost like reverence. "That woman was my grandmother." Zuri's knees felt weak. She gripped the cool stone railing for support. "She told me about you," he said quietly, "about the girl with the brave smile who treated her like family. She said you were rare, a soul that gives without taking." His gaze held hers, steady and certain. "I've been looking for you ever since." Zuri's phone vibrated in her clutch, shattering the intimate bubble that had formed around them. She almost ignored it, but something, instinct, maybe paranoia, made her pull it out. Unknown number. A single text message in stark white letters, "Leave now." "He is not safe." Her hands went cold. She showed him the screen without thinking, expecting confusion, maybe concern. Instead, his entire demeanor changed. The warmth drained from his expression, replaced by something sharp and deadly. His jaw tightened, and when he pulled out his own phone, his movements were precise, controlled. "Trace it," he said into the device, his voice clipped. "Now." Zuri's heart hammered. Who would send this? "Someone who wants you afraid." He pocketed his phone and turned to her, his pale eyes scanning her face with clinical intensity. "Or someone who wants to separate us. Either way, they just made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "They revealed they're watching." His gaze swept the terrace, the windows, the dark corners where shadows pooled. "Which means this is more complicated than I thought?" Before she could respond, raised voices drifted through the glass doors. Zuri caught fragments. Tessa's shrill tone, someone else trying to calm her down. She could imagine the scene inside, her former friends spinning the narrative, painting her as desperate, conniving, a social climber who'd somehow trapped the attention of a dangerous man. The story would spread like wildfire. By morning, her name would be associated with words like opportunist and worse. "They're already destroying your reputation," Jae-min said quietly, following her gaze. "It's what people like them do when they lose control of a situation." "People like them," Zuri repeated bitterly. "You mean rich people? White people?" "I mean cruel people." His voice was soft but absolute. "Cruelty has no color, Zuri. But yes, they have power and they'll use it." Her stomach twisted. This was a mistake. She should never have come tonight, never have taken his hand. You might never have let herself believe for even a moment that someone like him could see value in someone like her. "You're coming home with me tonight." She blinked. "What?" "My penthouse." He said it like it was already decided. "For your safety, until we understand what this is. You can't just, I don't even know you. You don't know me. This is insane. 3 months ago you showed my grandmother kindness when you had nothing to gain from it." His expression gentled slightly. "That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." He paused. "The question is whether you trust me enough to accept protection." Zuri's mind raced. Every rational instinct screamed at her to refuse, to go home, to pretend tonight never happened. But the text message glowed in her memory. "He is not safe. Not you're not safe. He is not safe." Someone was watching them both. "Okay," she whispered. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe respect. He offered his arm again, and this time when she took it, she felt the coiled strength beneath his sleeve, the carefully controlled power. They walked back through the ballroom together, and Zuri didn't look at Tessa or Marin or anyone else. She kept her head high, her hand steady on Jaemin's arm, and tried not to think about the fact that her entire life had just changed in the span of an hour. Jaemin's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building that looked like it had been carved from black glass and steel. The elevator required a keycard and retinal scan. When the doors opened directly into his living space, Zuri stepped into a world that felt both beautiful and alien. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, dark wood floors, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than her yearly salary, and art on the walls that she recognized from museum catalogs. "Guest room is upstairs," he said, shrugging off his jacket. "Second door on the left. There are clothes in the closet, all sizes. Help yourself." "You keep a closet full of women's clothes?" The words came out sharper than she intended. His mouth quirked. "My assistant keeps it stocked for occasions exactly like this. Unexpected guests who need to stay somewhere safe." He moved to a panel on the wall, pressing buttons that made screens flicker to life, security feeds showing every angle of the building. "I'm going to review footage from tonight, try to get some rest." But Zuri couldn't rest. She paced the guest room, which was larger than her entire apartment, wearing borrowed silk pajamas that felt like water against her skin. Her mind wouldn't stop spinning. The gala, Tessa's cruelty, Jaemin's grandmother, the warning text. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages, social media, trying to gauge the damage. Her notifications were exploding. Screenshots of her leaving the gala with Jae-min. Comments ranging from shocked to vicious. Who does she think she is? Gold digger. Bet she planned this. Diversity hire strikes again. Her throat tightened. She should be used to this by now. Then her thumb hovered over her voicemail icon. She had 17 saved messages she could never bring herself to delete, all from her mother, from before the car accident 5 years ago. She'd listen to them sometimes when the loneliness got too heavy, just to hear that familiar voice. But tonight, she noticed something she'd somehow missed. At the bottom of the list, marked with a red flag, "Do not delete." A message from her mother she'd never opened, dated the day before she died. Zuri's hands trembled as she pressed play. Static crackled, then her mother's voice, barely a whisper, shaking with fear. "Baby, if you're hearing this, something's happened to me. I need you to remember. Don't trust the people who smile the widest. They're not who they pretend to be. The foundation, the charity work, it's all." The message cut off abruptly, like the call had dropped. Zuri's heart stopped. She played it again, and again. Her mother's terrified voice, the cryptic warning, the sudden silence. A knock on the door made her jump. Jae-min entered without waiting for permission, his expression dark. "I found something in tonight's security footage. Someone was tracking you with professional equipment." He paused, studying her face. "What's wrong?" Wordlessly, she held out her phone and played the voicemail. When it ended, the silence stretched heavy between them. "Your mother," he said quietly. "How did she die?" "Car accident. Single vehicle. Police said she fell asleep at the wheel." Zuri's voice cracked. But she never drove tired. She was obsessive about safety. Jaemin's jaw tightened. What foundation was she talking about? "I don't know, she volunteered at a few charities, but nothing seemed." Zuri stopped, her blood running cold. "The Harbor Light Free Clinic has a parent foundation, the one that funds it." "What's it called?" "The Marrow Circle." Jae-min was on his phone before Zuri could process what she'd just said. His voice low and clipped as he issued rapid-fire instructions in Korean. She caught fragments. Names, locations, commands that sounded like military operations. When he ended the call, his pale eyes were hard as diamonds. "My people are pulling everything on the Marrow Circle. Financial records, board members, connections." He moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "But first, I need you to answer a question, and I need you to think carefully." Zuri nodded, her throat tight. "Tonight, the gala. Who invited you?" The question landed like a stone in her stomach. "Tessa. She bought my ticket, said it would be fun, that I should get out more." The memory sharpened, details she'd dismissed now glowing with sinister clarity. "She's been doing that for months, inviting me places, insisting I come, texting until I agreed." "Always her? Never the others?" "Usually her, sometimes Marin." Zuri's hands clenched. "They'd plan things, then act like I was lucky to be included. I thought they were my friends." Jaemin's expression was unreadable. "They were your handlers." The word hit her like a slap. Handlers. Like she was an asset, a thing to be managed and positioned. Her vision blurred with angry tears. His phone buzzed. He read the message and something dark flickered across his face. "Tessa Brightwell. 3 bank transfers over the past 6 months from a Marrow Circle subsidiary account. 5,000 each time." He looked at Zuri. "Always within a week of an event you attended together." The room tilted. Zuri gripped the edge of the dresser for support. "They were paid too." "What? Befriend me? Watch me? Keep you close. Isolated from real connections. Make sure you felt small and grateful for their attention." His voice was cold steel. "Classic manipulation. They weaponized your loneliness." Zuri wanted to vomit. Every coffee date, every group chat, every time she'd convinced herself she was overreacting to their casual cruelties, all of it had been manufactured. Purchased. "We're going to make them confess," Jae-min said quietly. "But we do it my way. No violence, no threats, just truth." Over the next 3 days, Zuri watched him work with surgical precision. He didn't threaten Tessa. He simply ensured that her employer received evidence of her real crimes: embezzled charity funds, falsified donation records, fraud that had nothing to do with Zuri, but everything to do with Tessa's greed. When Tessa's world started crumbling, when her job disappeared and her accounts froze, she called Zuri crying. The mask finally cracked. "I didn't want to hurt you," Tessa sobbed into the phone. They needed someone to keep tabs on you. It was easy money. I didn't think. Who are they? Zuri's voice was eerily calm. Marin, it was always Marin's contact. She set everything up. But Zuri, please, you have to believe me. Tessa's breath hitched. They told us it wasn't dangerous, just keep you busy, keep you away from certain places. We didn't know why. Where is Marin now? Silence. Then, she left the country this morning. She said. Tessa's voice dropped to a terrified whisper. She said they're not just after you, they're after his grandmother. Jae-min moved his grandmother within the hour. No warning, no explanation to anyone outside his inner circle. One moment, she was in her modest apartment in Queens. The next, she'd vanished into one of his safe houses, protected by men whose faces Zuri never saw clearly. 2 days later, he took Zuri to meet her. The apartment was smaller than his penthouse, warmer somehow, filled with the scent of jasmine tea and something herbal Zuri couldn't identify. Madame Kang sat in a cushioned chair by the window, sunlight making her white hair glow like a halo. She was tiny, delicate as porcelain, but her eyes, those same pale gray eyes her grandson had inherited, were sharp and knowing. When Zuri entered, the old woman's face transformed with recognition. She stood with surprising grace and crossed the room, reaching up to cup Zuri's face with weathered hands. You look like your mother, Madame Kang said softly, her English accented but clear. Zuri's breath caught. You knew her? Sit, child. The old woman guided her to the sofa, Jae-min following silently. I knew your mother before you were born. She was a nurse at the clinic, yes, but before that. She paused, her fingers tracing patterns in the air as if summoning memories. Before that, she worked with me. We were both trying to understand something dangerous. The Marrow Circle, Zuri whispered. Madame Kang nodded slowly. Your mother discovered what they were doing. Using charity work to hide money, to move resources for powerful people who wanted to stay invisible. She tried to expose them. I helped her. Her eyes grew distant. But they were stronger than we knew. The night of her accident, it was no accident. And I. Her voice cracked. I was a coward. I ran. I hid. I let her die alone. Tears streamed down Zuri's face. She tried to warn me, in a voicemail. She left you more than a warning. Madame Kang reached beneath her chair and produced a small wooden box, its surface carved with intricate flowers. She gave this to me 26 years ago. Made me promise to keep it safe until you were ready, until you asked the right questions. With trembling hands, Zuri opened the box. Inside, a silver locket on a delicate chain. A faded photograph of 2 young women. Her mother and Madame Kang, their arms around each other, smiling, and a slip of paper covered in numbers. 16 digits arranged in 4 groups. Bank account? Jae-min asked, leaning forward. Madame Kang shook her head. Ledger reference. Your mother kept records of everything she found. Names, transactions, dates, she encrypted it all and hid it somewhere even I don't know. Those numbers are the key. Zuri stared at the paper, her mother's handwriting barely legible after so many years. If we use this, we expose ourselves. Jae-min finished. They'll know we have it. They'll come for us. They're already coming, Madame Kang said quietly. That night, driving back through rain-slicked streets, Zuri saw it first. The sleek black sedan that had been following them for the past 6 blocks, maintaining perfect distance, never quite disappearing. Jae-min, she said, her voice tight. He'd already noticed. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Hold on. The chase was silent, professional, terrifying in its precision. Jae-min didn't speed. That would attract police. Instead, he moved through the city like water, turning where traffic allowed, using buses and delivery trucks as cover, his phone connected to an earpiece as he received real-time updates from his security team. 2 vehicles, he said quietly. They're coordinating. This isn't amateur surveillance. Zuri's heart hammered. She twisted in her seat, watching the headlights behind them split and merge, an elegant dance of intimidation. They weren't trying to catch up. They were hurting. Jae-min made a sudden decision, veering into an underground parking garage beneath a hotel. The concrete walls swallowed them, fluorescent lights flickering overhead. He drove to the lowest level and cut the engine. Silence pressed in, broken only by their breathing and the distant drip of water. Stay here, he murmured, already reaching for the door. No. Zuri grabbed his arm. Don't you dare leave me alone right now. Something flickered in his eyes, respect, maybe approval. He settled back, pulling out his phone instead. Then we wait for my people. They arrived within minutes, 3 black SUVs, men in dark suits who moved with military efficiency. Zuri and Jae-min were transferred to one of the vehicles, driven through a maze of service tunnels and back alleys until they emerged blocks away. Safe. For now. Back at the penthouse, Zuri collapsed onto the sofa, adrenaline draining from her body in waves. Jae-min poured her whiskey she didn't ask for but desperately needed. "This is my life," he said quietly, sitting across from her. "Complications, shadows, people who want things I won't give them." His pale eyes held hers. "If you walk away now, I won't stop you. I'll make sure you're protected, that they never touch you. But I won't force you to stay in this." Zuri stared at him. This dangerous, powerful man who'd crossed a ballroom for her, who'd seen value in a moment of kindness, who was offering her an escape even though she could see in his face that he didn't want her to take it. "I'm not walking away," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm walking forward." The smallest smile touched his mouth. Then his phone buzzed. His expression went carefully blank as he read the message. When he looked up, something cold had settled into his features. "They've escalated. What do you mean?" He turned the phone toward her. A video thumbnail showed a man in his 60s, face bruised, zip-tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse. The timestamp was from 20 minutes ago. Zuri's breath stopped. That's my father." She hadn't spoken to him in 8 years. He'd abandoned them when she was 12, walked out and never looked back. She'd learned about her mother's death through a voicemail he'd left, couldn't even attend the funeral because he was traveling. But seeing him like this, terrified, bleeding, made something primal twist in her chest. "They want us to react emotionally," Jae-min said, his voice flat. "It's a trap designed to force my hand. They know I'll come for him, and they're hoping I'll do it violently. Can we just—" Zuri's voice cracked. "Can we let the police handle it?" "No police. The moment they're involved, your father dies." Zuri stared at her father's terrified face on the screen, and something crystallized inside her. She'd spent years hating him, years building walls around the abandonment, convincing herself she didn't care. But she couldn't let him die. Not like this. "Then we don't follow their rules," she said suddenly. Jae-min looked up, surprised. Zuri's mind raced, pulling together fragments. Her mother's warning, Tessa's confession, the professional surveillance, the carefully orchestrated trap. "They want you to go in with guns. They want violence they can use against you, right? Evidence you're the monster they claim you are." "Yes. So we do the opposite." Her voice grew stronger. "We make it public. Cameras everywhere, a hospital. They can't shoot in a hospital with witnesses." Jae-min's lieutenant, a stern man named Chen who'd been listening from the doorway, shook his head. "Too risky. They could still—" "No," Jae-min interrupted. His eyes locked on Zuri. "She's right. It's strategic." Something shifted in his expression, genuine respect. "You're thinking like a chess player, not a victim." Within 2 hours they'd arranged it. A message sent through encrypted channels. "Release him at Mount Sinai Hospital. Main entrance. Public space, security cameras, witnesses." Zuri would meet them there. The kidnappers had no choice. Violence in a crowded hospital would bring police, federal attention, complications they couldn't afford. The trap only worked if Jae-min came alone, armed, ready to kill. Zuri walked into the hospital lobby at midnight, Jae-min's security team invisible in the crowd, dressed as orderly staff, visitors, doctors. Her father stumbled through the automatic doors, disoriented and bruised but alive. When he saw her, his eyes filled with tears. "Zuri." She caught him as he nearly fell, her arms around the man who'd abandoned hers, and felt nothing but hollow ache. "We need to get you checked out." "No. Listen to me." His fingers dug into her wrist with desperate strength. "Your mother. The accident. It wasn't." He gasped for breath. "She didn't die by accident. They killed her because she knew too much about the Marrow Circle." And Zuri, his voice dropped to a terrified whisper, "I don't think she's dead." The world tilted. "What?" "The body at the funeral. Closed casket. They said too damaged, but I saw papers later, medical examiner's notes that didn't match. Different height, different." He was babbling now, shock and fear bleeding together. "They might have staged it, kept her somewhere. I've been looking for years, too scared to tell you, but I think—" Jae-min appeared at Zuri's shoulder, his presence solid and steadying. Where would they keep her? Her father's eyes widened, recognizing who stood before him. I don't know, but there's a name. The man who orchestrated everything. He pulled a crumpled paper from his pocket with shaking hands. So Do-yeon, he runs a rival. Korean syndicate, Jae-min finished, his voice like ice. I know him. Zuri looked between them, her mother's voice echoing in her memory. Don't trust the people who smile the widest. Then we find him, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos screaming inside her, and we make him tell us where she is. Jaemin's hand found hers, warm and certain. Together. For the first time in her life, Zuri wasn't alone in the fight.